Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Sunshine Speechie YouTube channel. I'm Nancy, and if you haven't already seen this channel before, please make sure to like and subscribe. Also, if you're new, please make sure to check out my Instagram at Sunshine Speechie, as well as my podcast, Sunshine Speechie, where I interview SLP experts, as well as SLP undergrad and graduate students, just like you and I. Let's get started.
Sunshine, sunshine, Speechie.
So today's video is everything you need to do before applying to SLP grad school. So it might be a long video, but hang in there because it's going to be so much important information. So the first thing you're going to want to do is build up your resume. If you don't know anything about this, please make sure to check out my video, 5 experiences to boost your SLP grad school resume. But basically, you're going to want to take a bunch of great experiences and just do whatever you can to prepare yourself for graduate school and any sort of experiences that show your character. So that could be research, it could be academia based, or it could just be volunteering, it could be leadership. So if you were the president of a club or the secretary of a club, feel free to throw that on there. The second thing is a good GRE score. What is a good GRE score? Well, that kind of depends on the program that you're applying to. If you want more information about that, please make sure to check out my podcast or the GRE Survival Guide episode. But basically, you're going to want to have whatever GRE score is important for the programs that you want to get into. I would recommend taking the GRE your junior year of college because a lot of times you're going to have to take the GRE more than once, and you really don't want to be in a time crunch and have your GRE scores get to schools later, because something a lot of people don't realize is that it can take a bit of time for your GRE scores to process. It can take a couple weeks. So even if you took the GRE score 2 weeks, even if you took the GRE 2 weeks before your application was due, the scores might not be ready to be submitted yet. So make sure to give yourself plenty of time before applying to SLP grad school to take the GRE and possibly take it again if needed. The next thing you're going to want to do is create your resume. So hopefully, if you're following this checklist, you already have a great amount of experiences to add to your resume. You can either do a resume or a CV. A CV is kind of like an extended resume. So if you have a crazy load of really relevant experiences, especially if they're research or if you've been published, then you might want to use a CV. You also definitely want somebody who you trust to look over your resume before you submit it to schools. So if you have a career center at your college, or if you have a professor that you really trust, I would highly recommend that. In addition, these resumes are for graduate school, so you don't want to have too much fluff. You don't want to get too creative on your resume. You want to keep it very, very professional and pretty basic. Next is letters of recommendation. So you're going to want to ask people for your letters of recommendation either at the end of your junior year or the beginning of your senior year. I have a video all about letters of recommendation that's coming out soon. So if you want more answers about that, please stay tuned. But you are going to want at least 3 to 5 letters of recommendation, and you should be asking people way before your applications are due so that they have ample time to write you a really great letter. You want to make it as easy as possible on their end because they're doing you a favor. Next is essays. This is another thing that you're going to want to start ASAP because you are going to want to have a couple different drafts before you submit your final one. Schools do it very differently, so I applied to one school that only required about 150 characters worth of a personal statement. It was crazy short. I had other schools that required, just a very simple personal statement. Tell us about you and what you can bring to our program. And then there are other schools that have specific questions that they might ask, or they might have a couple different essay questions. So be sure that you are prepared for whatever they throw at you and really try and emphasize your abilities as a future student of theirs. I have a video all about personal statements coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. But be sure that you are working on that as soon as it comes out. I started working on mine in August just so that I would have the perfect version of my personal statement available to me once I submitted all of my applications. Next, you're almost there, applications. Something to keep in mind is that a lot of schools will use CSDCAS. What the heck is that? CSDCAS is basically a common app of SLP grad schools. So a lot of programs choose that route just because it's really easy. Not every program will do that, so be sure to check out the school's website, and if you have any questions for them about their application process, feel free to reach out to them directly. The CSDCAS kind of works where it's all one uniform thing, so you fill out your classes. You can pay to have someone fill out your classes professionally. I don't really think that's necessary. You can do it by yourself just fine, and schools will let you know if you're doing it wrong. But it's pretty basic. You just put in all of the courses that you've taken as well as your grade in that class. You're going to have a section with just your personal information, and then you will have sections specifically for every school. So every school will have their personal version of a personal statement in there, or their questions, all of that important stuff as well. CSDCAS is pretty expensive, so just be aware. Make sure that you look at what all of the fees are, because it's very tempting to just throw on a bunch of really fun, amazing programs onto your CSDCAS and think that you're going to apply to every single one. But make sure that you click to see what those final fees are going to be, because it can really, really add up, and you don't want to break the bank while applying to grad school. Another thing that's important to keep in mind is that some schools have supplemental applications. So supplemental applications can have additional essays or questions, or they could literally just be asking for more personal information, and then they require another fee. That happened to me for one of my schools, and I ended up having to pay over $100 more just for that supplemental application. I don't understand it. I don't think anyone understands it, but just be on the lookout for that. And so if a school or program has a deadline and you don't read the fine print, you might miss the deadline because you submit your CSDCAS or something else, but you don't realize that you have to apply, then wait for your supplemental application, then complete that, and then you will be done with the process. So just make sure that you're aware if they have a supplemental application or not, and if that has a different deadline from the full application. The last thing that is so important is prerequisites. Every single program that is ASHA accredited will have the same prerequisites of 1 biological science, 1 physical science, a social or behavioral science, and statistics. But that is not where prerequisites end. Every single program will have their own protocol as to what prerequisites are required to enter their program. So don't just assume that once you finish ASHA's prerequisites that you are good to go and apply to their program. For most people who are applying after finishing their undergraduate in CSD or SLP, you will probably be good to go. But if you are an out-of-major applicant, you might have to take additional classes online or through their program in order to qualify. So you might have to take specific speech pathology classes. I had to do that for one of my schools, and so I decided to do it because all of my schools told me that they would take those courses and that it could shorten the amount of time that I was in graduate school. Please make sure to reach out to those programs directly. Reach out to every program directly, ask them what their prerequisites are, send them what prerequisites you're taking. So if you're taking them at an online institution instead of their institution, make sure to send those prerequisites to them and say, here's the list of what I'm taking. Is this going to be accepted for those classes? Because some schools will be very, very nitpicky, and they'll say, you can only take speech science if you're in our program, so don't even think about taking it somewhere else. Some programs will say, hey, I don't care where you took that speech science or hearing science. It's good to go, just make sure you have it. And some programs will say, you don't need any prerequisites, we will take absolutely anyone and it doesn't matter. So just make sure that you check with that program. And that can be a great way to narrow things down as well, because if you're an out of major applicant and one of the schools you're applying to requires 10 prerequisites and the other one doesn't require any, maybe consider that when thinking about what schools you should apply to, because it can be a really big hassle, time commitment, and it can cost a lot of money to take prerequisites that wouldn't be needed by a different university or program. So be sure that you are looking at the prerequisites required as soon as possible. So if you're a freshman listening to this video, you are in luck. Check out all the schools that you want to apply to as prerequisites. If you are a current junior or a senior panicking, please don't panic. This does not mean that you can't go to graduate school this year. It just means that you have to reach out to those programs right now, and maybe you won't be able to go to your number one program, but maybe you will because you're able to figure out online prerequisites during the summer. That's always a possibility. Or maybe they will waive your prerequisites. I've heard of that happening. Or they could just say, hey, you know what? You can take those programs or those classes through us. But it's definitely something that you need to be considering when you're thinking about the application process. I was very behind and did not know that this whole prerequisite process was a thing. So I was definitely at a disadvantage. I don't want you guys to be there. I don't want to stress you guys out right now, but at the same time, I want you guys to know that it is a thing. That is actually the end of this video. I really hope that you guys found it helpful and that it wasn't too stressful for you guys. If you found my video, you're already in the right place, so don't stress too much. Applying to graduate school is going to be absolutely different for everyone, so there's no right success story. But this is a great little checklist to start with, just so that you know that you're on the right track and you're not missing out on anything. So I hope you found this helpful. I think I already said that. And if you have any questions or comments or ideas for future videos, please make sure to comment below. Also, once again, don't forget to check out my podcast, Sunshine Speechie, where I'm interviewing all of these great, amazing people that will hopefully be able to help you through your process. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Sunshine Speechie.